Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is December 2nd, 2025, and the entire AI world seems to be defined by two opposing forces.
That's right. On one hand, you have this incredible hyper-acceleration in what the tech can do. But on the other, you have this intense friction.
Friction from where? Infrastructure, governance?
All of the above. And that's our mission for this deep dive, to really get into that push and pull. We're looking at new chips, new models, but also the competitive pressure, the huge operational costs, and the governance problems that are still unsolved.
Okay, so we're going to navigate all that. We'll start with some new research that actually points to some, well, fundamental instability in these models.
And then we get into the product battles, where market leaders are basically in crisis mode. It's a really good snapshot of the global landscape today.
Let's start with the research then. Segment A. What are the labs telling us?
Well, the first paper is a big one. It's about unstable safety mechanisms in long-context LLM agents.
Okay, in plain English, what does that mean?
It means that when you feed these models a really, really long input, think of a huge document or a complex task, their built-in safety features can just, well, fall apart.
So the thing that's supposed to stop it from doing harmful things becomes unreliable.
Exactly. The agent's ability to refuse a problematic request gets wildly inconsistent. And this is, it's a critical vulnerability for any kind of high-stakes autonomous system.
And there's a specific metric here, isn't there? A point where things start to go wrong?
There is. Performance starts to degrade at around 100,000 tokens. And that's for models that are marketed as having, 1 or even 2 million token context windows.
So the marketing is way ahead of the reality.
It really is. The study pointed to one model, Grok 4 Fast, its refusal rate. So its safety started at around 80%, pretty good. But at 200,000 tokens, it just plummeted to 10%.
Wow, from 80 to 10. That's not just degradation, that's a collapse.
It's a collapse, and it shows that just making the memory bigger doesn't make the model safer or more robust. It's a kind of technical debt that's being sold as a feature.
Okay, so that's the friction. What about acceleration? Is there any research pointing to new capabilities?
There is a really fascinating study from Arizona State and Loyola University Chicago looking at LLMs as mediators in online flame wars.
So moving beyond just deleting comments.
Way beyond. Not just moderation, but actual mediation. They looked at whether an LLM could use what they call judgment and steering to de-escalate fights online.
Judgment and steering. So first figure out what's going on and then actively try to fix it.
Precisely. And the results were pretty clear. The big API-based closed models were consistently better at this than the open source ones.
And it actually worked.
It did. In the simulations, LLM mediation successfully reduced toxicity, even things like the use of exclamation points. It shows a path for these tools to, transform online conflict, not just police it.
Okay, one more from the research world. A new benchmark called LLM Cheeky SS.
Right. This uses the game of chess as a testbed for reasoning and instruction following.
Why chess?
Because unlike a lot of standard NLP benchmarks, natural language processing benchmarks, chess forces the model to do multi-step planning. It has to think, 10, 20 moves ahead, considering all the consequences.
I see. So it's a much better test of actual reasoning than just asking it to summarize a paragraph.
A much better test. It gives us a reproducible way to see if these models can handle complex operational planning, which is, essential if we want to get to truly autonomous agents.
Speaking of autonomous, let's move to the product world. Segment B. This is where, as you said, the friction really hits a boiling point.
Absolutely. And the biggest story today confirms it. There is an internal escalation at OpenAI. CDO Sam Altman has reportedly declared a code red.
A code red? That sounds serious.
It is. The internal memo basically says to prioritize immediate improvements to ChatGPT. And crucially, they're delaying other big projects.
Which projects?
Things people were really anticipating. Advertising, shopping, and specialized health agents are all on hold.
Why? What's driving this?
Competition. The sources are pretty clear that it's a direct response to Google. Their Gemini 3 model is gaining a lot of traction, reportedly reaching 650 million monthly users.
Wait, hold on. Let's unpack that. OpenAI is giving up its entry into these huge markets like health and e-commerce just to defend its chatbot. Isn't that a really dangerous long-term move?
It is a very defensive move. They're fighting on the ground they currently hold, but they're sacrificing the chance to capture the next battleground. It suggests they're burning cash just to stop users from leaving.
And they're accelerating a new model to fight back.
That's right. They're rushing a model codenamed Garlic to try and get the lead back in reasoning and coding.
And the pressure isn't just from Google. Europe is making a big move, too.
A very big move. Out of France, we have the Mistral 3 open-weight frontier model family launch.
This is the French AI startup, Mistral AI. What's special about this one?
Well, the flagship, Mistral Large 3, uses a mixture of experts architecture and MoE. That's a very sophisticated approach.
And what's the key number we should be looking at?
The parameter count. The open-weight model has 675 billion total parameters. That puts it right up there with the biggest closed models.
But because it's open weight, it's cheaper.
Dramatically cheaper. Pricing is reportedly 80% below GPT-4o. This gives businesses a really powerful, cost-effective alternative.
And the big cloud providers are jumping on this trend.
They are. Amazon Bedrock adds 18 open-weight models, including these new ones from Mistral.
Why are they doing that?
It's a strategic play. AWS is bringing its selection to almost 100 serverless models, all available through one API. If the models themselves become cheap commodities, the real value is in the platform that lets you deploy them easily. It's about controlling the infrastructure layer.
And AWS is also pushing further into agents.
They unveiled AWS Frontier Agents for autonomous workflows. These are specialized agents for things like coding, security, and DevOps.
So this is the shift you were talking about earlier.
This is it. We're moving from AI assistants that give suggestions to autonomous systems that can actually run complex tasks for hours or days with minimal oversight. It's happening now.
And finally, on the consumer side, Google is putting this power directly into our hands.
Right. The new Android update adds AI-powered scam detection right in the phone and messages apps.
How does that work?
It's on-device AI, so it analyzes calls and messages in real time to flag potential scams, giving you instant alerts. It's a great example of using AI to protect against, the friction and dangers of the digital world.
Okay, let's shift to the hardware that powers all of this, Segment C chips and infrastructure. It feels like the focus here has really changed.
It's pivoted dramatically. A year and a half ago, all anyone talked about was getting more GPUs. Now the main conversation is about the physical limits. It's about thermodynamics.
And the money is following that pivot.
Exactly. The lead story proves it. A startup called Axiato raises $100 million for an AI server optimization chip.
So a chip not for running models, but for running the data center itself.
Precisely. It's a specialized chip that manages things like climate control and security inside the server racks, using its own AI to do it.
And the metric here is savings.
It's all about OpEx, operational expenditure. The chip is projected to save up to 50% of the energy used just in cooling systems.
50%, that's huge.
It's a game changer. That $100 million raise proves that cooling is the new bottleneck. If you can solve cooling, you can get more out of the real estate you already have.
Meanwhile, AWS is still pushing the raw performance side with its own custom chips.
They are. They just officially launched the AWS Trainium 3 Ultra servers.
These are powered by their new 3-nanometer AI chip. What kind of scale are we talking about here?
The scale is immense. Each Ultra server has 144 Trainium 3 chips. Together, they deliver 362 PFLOPS.
PFLOPS, that's quadrillions of floating point operations per second.
Right, and for the user, that means it's 4.4 times faster than the last generation. This basically changes the economics of who can train a frontier model. Smaller labs are now in the game.
And for organizations that can't use the public cloud due to regulations, all that data sovereignty friction.
AWS has an answer for that, too. They've introduced AI factories for on-premise deployment.
So they'll just ship you an entire rack of AWS servers.
Essentially, yes. It's a private AI infrastructure you can put in your own data center. It supports both NVIDIA GPUs and their Trainium chips, so it directly solves that data localization problem for governments or banks.
Which brings us nicely to Segment D policy, governance, and global adoption. This is where the regulatory friction really comes into play.
And it's so necessary when the tech is accelerating this fast. A new analysis today from the International Center for Counterterrorism, or ICCT, really highlights a massive safety gap.
What's the headline?
The headline is that human moderators are indispensable for implicit extremist content.
Implicit content, so not the obvious stuff, but things hidden in irony or coded language.
Exactly. The things that AI systems are just terrible at detecting. They either miss it completely or they overcorrect and delete harmless content.
Is there data to back that up?
There is. The analysis points to an MIT study that found a, frankly, jaw-dropping 95% failure rate when companies tried to automate this kind of moderation.
95%, so they fail almost every time.
Almost every time. The models just don't have the deep cultural context or nuance. And relying on them for this actually increases risk.
Meanwhile, over in the EU, they're trying to build a framework for all of this.
That's right. Henna Verkunen, the executive VP for tech sovereignty, is pushing ahead with new acts. They're setting up a European AI Research Council and developing an EU Cloud and AI Development Act.
So it's not just about regulation, it's also about building their own capabilities.
It's a dual strategy. They're trying to balance that regulatory friction with a state-backed industrial strategy to make sure Europe can compete.
Shifting to Asia, Meta seems to be using a different strategy.
A very different one. They're all in on their open source strategy to accelerate APAC innovation.
With their llama models.
Exactly. It's a very shrewd way to overcome cultural friction. They let local developers fine-tune the models for languages like Korean, Vietnamese, and Bahasa Indonesia.
So they get local relevance and adoption much faster.
Much faster. It's a clever way to expand their footprint.
We also saw a really interesting example of this tech penetrating other industries. In Russia, of all places.
Yeah, this one stood out. ITMO University and the grocery chain Vikasville launched a joint R&D center for foods of the future.
So they're using industrial AI for food manufacturing.
For food innovation and manufacturing, yes. They're taking things from the lab and getting test batches onto actual grocery store shelves. It just shows how deep this technology is starting to penetrate the economy.
And finally, a huge enterprise adoption story.
A massive one. The health tech company IQVIA named AWS as preferred AI cloud partner.
And what's the goal of that partnership?
They're using AWS infrastructure for their new platform, IQVIA.ai. The idea is to accelerate drug discovery and automate clinical trials. Given how regulated healthcare is, this is a huge vote of confidence in AWS's ability to handle high-stakes compliant workloads.
That was a lot. So much acceleration and so much friction all in one day. If you had to boil it all down, what are the key takeaways?
For me, it's really two things. First, the race for efficiency in infrastructure is now completely dominated by thermodynamics, by cooling and power. And second, the competitive squeeze at the very top of the model food chain is forcing even the leaders, like OpenAI, into crisis mode.
Okay, so for everyone listening, let's make this practical. What are some tools or tutorials you can use today?
First, if you want to play with all these new models, go to the Amazon Bedrock Console Playground. With Mistral 3 and others now available, you can test them all through one API without setting up any infrastructure. It's the easiest way to see what they can do.
Good one. And a second.
Second, if you're building something that needs real nuance, like the mediation app we talked about, remember that research. The top-tier API-based models like GPT-5 and Claude 4.5 are still the gold standard for those complex judgment and steering tasks.
Great. And let's wrap with the numbers of the day.
I'll start. $100 million. That's the funding for Axiato's server chip. It's the number that proves the investment frontier has shifted from raw compute to pure efficiency.
And I'll take the second one. $675 billion. The parameter count for Mistral's new open weight model. That's the number that signals Europe is serious about competing on scale, and they're doing it by slashing prices.
A perfect summary of the day.
So we saw all these major players from AWS to Google talking about the next platform being physical AI. It's moving off our phones and into autonomous agents and wearables, things that, see what we see and hear what we hear.
Right. Always on assistance.
Exactly. So here's the thought I want to leave you with. If our digital lives are about to become physically embodied in the world around us, how fast do our safety and governance models need to evolve to even keep up? That ICCT study showed a 95% failure rate for AI trying to understand nuance online. The real challenge, the core friction of this new autonomous economy, is figuring out how to solve that problem in the real world.
That is the question, and it's a question we have to answer now, because that economy is no longer on the horizon and it's knocking at the door. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll catch you next time.